You're listening to The Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Harry Buffalo. Catch every UFC pay-per-view live in full HD at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Sports Fix listeners, don't wait all day or all week to get in on the fun. The party doesn't stop when we go off the air all week long. The Sports Fix social media sites are your one-stop shop for all things Cleveland sports. Jump over to Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, Facebook.com/TheSportsFix, and become a fan today because we love fans and they create some of the best sports talk in town, Daddy. You'll enjoy talking to your fellow Cleveland sports fans on the Sports Fix fan page. And if Twitter's your thing, well, you know how we do it. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. It's that simple.
Twitter.com/TheSportsFixCLE, baby.
Chat live with the crew during all your favorite Cleveland sports events, tickets and contests and trivia and so much more. Get with us today, The Sports Fix on social media. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE. Join The Sports Fix on Facebook and Twitter today.
Hey, it's Hugh Hewitt, and when I want to know what's going on with the Cavs, the Browns, and the Tribe, I tune into Sports Fix.
Live in Ohio, it's time to get your fix. The Sports Fix.
And welcome in indeed. We are live. Let me get that turned up a little bit here. Give him a microphone on me a little bit there. How's everybody doing? Welcome in, each and every one of you. Another Monday afternoon here, kicking things off. Another week, baby, here on the Sports Fix. A lot to talk about. A lot going on this past weekend. Man, I know some people got the pitchforks ready. I know some people, the villagers are hot. And we'll talk about the results of the series this weekend here with the Tigers. But, you know, I got to take the hat off to the city of Cleveland and to the Indians fans. 100,000, and a little bit hair over that, actually. 100,206 fans total filled Progressive Field for the 3 games this weekend. Not only was Saturday the first it was the first sellout since opening day, but it was the first non-opening day sellout since July 5th of last year, also against the Tigers, 4th of July weekend with fireworks and all of that, so that makes a lot of sense. And this weekend, the first time that the Indians passed 100,000 fans for the weekend since July of 2011. I mean, I'm talking that's several seasons ago. That's not just last year, 2 years ago, 3 full seasons ago. The last time the Indians had a weekend where they had as many fans fill Progressive Field as they did this weekend. And I got to tell you, man, I mean, hats off to the Indians fans. I had a feeling coming in, we talked about it on Friday, that it was going to be a big weekend, and I know there's some people out there, and I want to talk later. I'll talk to Dan Wismar, and I want to talk to you guys about this too, but, you know, of course, every time the Indians get the big crowd, they don't come through, and yes, there's clearly some truth to that, but I got to tell you, First off, I'm not as bitterly disappointed about the weekend as some people. Obviously, listen, take that with a grain of correct. I'm not happy at all. But yesterday, man, and even yesterday, you can chalk 3 errors. I mean, 2 of them in that inning. I mean, you give up whatever. We'll get into the ins and outs of the individual games, but, let's keep in mind, these are the Detroit Tigers, and, for as much as they're a weaker Detroit Tigers team than they have been in previous years, they're still a very good team, and much like the Indians sweeping the Detroit Tigers does not mean that the Indians are that significantly better than the Tigers. It's the same thing here. And so, especially when you look at Friday and Saturday, man, I'll tell you, to come back, to get so opportunities missed, you could have won that game. But both of those games, Friday and Saturday, I look at those as competitive could have went either way games, and but yesterday obviously different, as all the bad things that did the Indians in throughout the season reared their ugly heads again yesterday. But this was not a series where Detroit just came in and wiped the floor with the Indians all weekend. Miguel Cabrera did, but that being said, that is a unique, one-of-a-kind athlete, fellas. I mean, Cabrera is, for all players with more than 125 at-bats against the Indians, I don't know if you guys heard this stat over the weekend, but he is third all-time in home runs against the Indians for the opposition, and leads all players all-time in the RBIs there for players that had more than 125 at-bats against the Indians. He's an everybody killer, but he is definitely an Indians killer as well. I know some people were mad. Was it Saturday? It was like, well, why would you pitch to him? Well, I mean, Victor Martinez hits every baseball that's in Cleveland, period. I mean, they don't even have to be pitched. Every baseball delivered to the city of Cleveland comes with Vic Martinez's bat mark already on it, and in anticipation of what's coming. And his fellow Martinez compatriot hasn't been hitting very poorly himself either there. That's the beauty of that lineup that they have. As a baseball person, you've just got to appreciate that I mean, they really, that's a tough order to get through there. I mean, all through that top part of that top and middle part of that lineup there. But anyways, so we'll talk about all of that. Indians, big attendance weekend. Obviously, the results not what they liked. They now sit 5 games back. We're going to talk about all of that. Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan will be here, as we said, to jump in on that conversation as well. We'll talk Omar, as Omar goes into the Hall of Fame. And I mean, what a ceremony, emotional. The fans there, they sold it out. Like I said, first, obviously first sellout of the season since opening day, and rare in these parts the last few years to get the non-opening day, non-playoff game sellout, and Omar got it right there, and deservedly so. And we'll talk about his comments a little bit later on as well, and some of that as well too. I mean, how long until the word Indians Hall of Fame just gets replaced with the big Hall of Fame? Because Omar Vizquel, man, he's a guy who's in any conversation, any discussion you want to have. Muchas gracias, he says to the people of Cleveland this weekend. And we're going to talk about all of that, you guys. John McMullen from the Sports Network is here with us as well today. Can't wait to catch up with him. It's been 2 weeks. We'll talk about the latest around the NFL. Chad Johnson playing in the Canadian Football League. Justin Gilbert. We'll talk about all of that with John McMullen. Can't wait to get into that. Cavaliers, you know what? Not only do they sign the contract, even though the press conference not until Wednesday. This is a big 7-day period here coming up for the Cavaliers. Obviously, we all know not only do you have free agency looming here at the beginning of July, free agency on 2 fronts. On the front of acquiring players, but on the front of the Kyrie Irving situation as well. So you've got July 1st there. You've got the draft this Thursday, and then you've got David Blatt, who agreed to terms to become the coach. His press conference will be on Wednesday. The draft will be on Thursday. And, just to point out how much, even if you do your research and everything and all of that, when it comes to especially the NBA draft, look at the results the last few years. And I'm not saying that it's all luck and that it's all the luck of the draw, but there's a bit of fortune. And we talk about this a lot in all the sports, besides the X's and O's, besides the what the scouting report says. There's a bit of fortune involved when you draft these players, as far as their health, as far as how their upside turns out. Look at, it's funny, actually, not at all the story, but the coincidence that the plain dealer actually, the Cleveland plain dealer here in the Cleveland plain dealer here in Cleveland, obviously it's one of those mornings, but they did a little write-up about Isaiah Austin, the Baylor center, who was expected to perhaps go in the first round of the draft here, the big man, and he had a very interesting story of the things that he had overcome to get himself in position to be drafted. And then the story comes out here that just a few days before the draft, not only is his draft status is gone, but his entire NBA future out the window. Marfan syndrome, he's been diagnosed with it. It literally can cause your heart to explode while you're playing basketball. He immediately was suggested, not recommended, or however you want to put it, to end his professional sports career immediately. It's a genetic abnormality that was found when he went through his testing here. But, seeing as how this happens just a few days before the draft, I mean, really, if you look at it, obviously people do their tests. That's how Embiid's injury was found here. But we've seen tragedy strike before. I mean, 4 days later, some team may have already made their selection of him before this is found out, and they end up losing the use of a first-round draft pick that they spent here. I saw that, and with it being so close to Thursday, I said that's the difference. I mean, a few days later that this gets out there, a few days later that this is discovered, or perhaps somehow people miss it until a post-draft physical, and then there's no going back. It's not like you can redo the draft. So from the purely using an asset perspective of it, that would be a bad thing, and that's one of the things that comes. It's the fortune that comes along with the draft as well. And, with that coming up here, we saw Embiid and his injury being discovered by the Cavaliers, and now teams talking about that. The Cavs all over the news as far as they should be, and realistically would be, with the number one pick in the catbird seat when it comes to trades and things that are coming in. Wiggins and Parker are in the discussion, and then of course leave it to LeBron James' wife to add to it with her tweet, or Instagram, over the weekend of the countdown has begun, coming back to the 3-3-0. And me personally, I will just throw this out and remind you that they do spend the off seasons back in Akron. They do spend the off seasons here. She is pregnant. There's a new child coming into the LeBron James family. So clearly there are other reasons for them to come home, and this is not abnormal. So I'm just saying, there is that side of it too. But hey, make of it what you want. I'm sure there's a million home video editors right now taking their LeBron clips and I'm coming home. They're going to make the little video. I'm sure it'll be great. We'll be indulged with it all over YouTube soon enough. But anyways, I don't make more out of that than it is. But because clearly, I mean, they come home every summer. But that is out there, and it's the buzz all over the Twitterverse and the internet last night. LeBron James' wife tried to break Twitter. Yeah, it was amazing. So anyways, leave that out there for what it is. To me, the tangible things when we're talking Cavs is David Blatt here in the house. He has officially taken the offer. We talked about that. Just wrapped up. They just wrapped things up as we went off the air Friday and made that official. And your draft here, because there are a lot of options. I've seen a few different trade packages come the Cavs' way, so they've got a lot of choices. I mean, to me, really, this is a big 7-day period for them. Who cares about those 3 initials from down south? Forget that. Between the draft, between your new coach coming in and getting his hands on this franchise for the first time, and whatever's going to happen July 1st when you sit down with Kyrie Irving. Right now, that's plenty to have on your plate right there before you've even got to talk about any of this silliness that's out there. All of this stuff. Hey, Team USA, we didn't even open up the show yet. I just dove into things. Man, Team USA with that tie. I told you guys, I'm no soccer guy at all, but one of the reasons I'm not is because I don't know about the whole ending games and ties things, man. At least hockey has shootouts. At least they try to find some way. I'm not a big fan of that. And I'm not a big fan of adding the extra time back on. To me, that's the equivalent of at the end of a football game going, well, we stopped for, 7 minutes of dead time in between things. So add 7 minutes to the clock after the final buzzer goes off. Or, in a baseball game, well, there were, 37 foul balls in this game. So we're going to add X amount of pitches to this thing. We're going to extend it after the game's already over, So, that kind of bothers me about that, but Team USA gives it up at the end, the tie, and now their fate up in the air about getting out of their group. When I saw that, I said, man, there's a deflating way to end a 90-minute sporting event with a few seconds left there, giving up the tie. Yeah, we're going to talk Gladiators too. I see you guys in the chat room. Gladiators clinch the playoffs here. All of that coming up. Hey, welcome into the Sports Fix, man. We're gonna just let's just go into the break. Let's do the open into the break. Come back and pick this right back up. Talking more. Welcome into the Sports Fix, you guys. J-Rocc here. Jerry Myers back with you as we kick things off here. Welcome in, whether you're listening live on the Sports Fix, on the sportsfix.net, the home ship, the home base, the mothership, if you will. Welcome in, whether you guys are listening on TuneIn, TuneIn's radio app worldwide, on Spreaker and Mixler and all of the different live outlets as well. Each and every one of you listening on digital delay 24/7 on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on iTunes, on Stitcher Radio and SoundCloud, all the podcast platforms as well, guys. Welcome into the Sports Fix. As I said, J-Rocc with you guys, and I want you to be a part of the conversation, and I want you to do it now. Matter of fact, I've got callers on the line. I'm going to start the next segment on the phone lines with you guys. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. 216-539-7535. Pick up the phone and give me a call. If you can't get to the phones, hit us up. Facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix CLE on Facebook, at The Sports Fix on Twitter, at The Sports Fix CLE. Hit us up. Email us. sportsfix@AOL.com. When we come back, we're taking your calls. We're talking Indian weekend here and so much more as we kick off the Monday morning edition. Well, the afternoon. It's all right. Welcome into the Sports Fix, baby. Rocking and rolling. Next, your calls and so much more coming up. 216-539-7535. Hit us up. We'll be right back.
This is the Sports Fix.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Are you talking to me?
Yes.
Hey, call me Mr. Pig!
We'll call you whatever you like, as long as we can call you a fan of the Sports Fix.
Guys, want to take just a second as we head into this break and remind you about the official business printing source of the Sports Fix, our friends at Signs and Ship. Signs and Ship, I'm telling you, Chris and Pam, they've taken care of me since day one, and they can do the same for you. Whether you're a small business that's already been established and you're looking to grow to that next level and expand your business, or perhaps you've got an idea that you just know is going to be a great business and you need to figure out how to brand it and how to promote it and put it out there, Signs and Ship is the place for you. If you need a logo, they can create one for you. They have a fantastic graphic designer. Business cards, signs, banners, yard signs, mobile advertising, anything you can think of that you need to promote your business, they've got it at Signs and Ship. The best thing about them, too, is each of their locations, whether it's the home base here in Elyria, Ohio that I work with, or their spots in Virginia, Florida, and Pennsylvania, it's all local sourced. Very important to me because we all understand that small business. Check them out, signsandship.com, or call Chris and Pam today, 440-323-6060, the home office in Elyria, Ohio. Signs and Ship, quality printing at affordable prices.
Hey everybody, this is Jerry the King Lawler from WWE, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
Indians fans, GV Art and Design has unleashed their new baseball collection. This summer, you've got to have one of the hottest baseball shirts available. Indians themes, GV Art has them covered from top to bottom. Chief Wahoo, keep the Chief, one of the hottest sellers going today. GV Artwork, knocking it out of the park, teaming up with Michael Brantley to create a custom Dr. Smooth t-shirt, bringing back an old classic. GV Artwork, bringing out the wild thing. Give them the heater design. The Cleveland That I Glove collection continues to grow. New designs for women and so much more. GVArtwork.com, bringing it full force to the plate for baseball season this year. Whether you check them out online, GVArtwork.com, use the sales code FIX10, FIX10 to save 10% on your total purchase. Whether you go to their store in Lakewood, check them out at the Cleveland Indians team shops around Progressive Field, and so much more. GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
Sports Fix listeners, like us on Facebook today. Facebook.com.
I've been a pro wrestler my whole life, so championship belts have always kind of been a way of life to me. But did you know title belts are quickly becoming the fastest rising and the most popular new way for people to celebrate all kinds of things you never would have thought of before? We use it for our fantasy football league. It's a really cool conversation piece. Office pools, employee of the month, you name it. There's tons of different trophies that you used to buy plaques for. Well, I'm here to tell you about Pro-Am Championship Belts, who have the highest quality championship belt with the lowest prices. Replace those old trophies with stock belts on hand that they can customize for as low as $30. Any occasion, celebrations, awards, championships, fantasy leagues, gifts, plus wrestling, mixed martial arts, boxing. If you need championship belts, check them out. Pro-Am Championship Belts, ProAmBelts.com. Look them up on Facebook, Pro-Am Belts. Trust me, nothing says cool like doing the discount double check with a real championship belt. Just ask Aaron Rodgers. Now you too can have one thanks to Pro-Am Championship Belts.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck, home of the low price tire guarantee. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
Welcome back into the Sports Fix live here on the sportsfix.net. Man, we had all kinds of things going on behind the scenes there to open the show. We rolled through it like a champ, baby, as we kick things back off here. Welcome back in. Much more organized and about it. See, it was all good how that worked out. Phone lines, I've got callers on them now. Going to take your calls, 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. Hold that line, like Toto's saying in the background. If you can't get there, hit us up on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/TheSportsFix. Tweet with us at TheSportsFixCLE. You can email us, TheSportsFix@AOL.com as well. And hey, by the way, speaking of that, I love to hear from you guys throughout the weekend. Weekend kind of always my favorite because then I hear from things throughout the week, and I hear from so many different people as the hours go by and all the different people catch up on the show. And hey, some people do like Monday through Friday all on the weekend, which is like, wow, hey, trooper, more power to you. But that's some megadose in your sports fix right there, man. That may be illegal in certain countries. I'm just saying. But anyways, love it. So hey, you guys, keep it up. Keep letting me know what you think about the show, what you like, what you don't like. Argue with me. That's the fun bonus benefit of getting to do what we do. And real quick, before I go to the phones, I had started on the topic. I talked a little bit about it from the aspect of the draft, but had some people say, hey, what was it about the story? I was talking about Isaiah Austin, the guy from Baylor who is now pulled from the draft. He's had to withdraw his NBA potential here, his career, as he was found to have a degenerative condition that could cause him literally to drop dead while he's playing basketball. He was told over the weekend. Matter of fact, the doctor, it was a pretty touching story. She said she literally drove throughout the night to get to him, to deliver the news to him personally. But his story was interesting because he had already worked so hard to get himself in position just to be drafted. He had 4 surgeries. Since he was 16 years old, he suffered a detached retina. He's been blind in his right eye since the age of 16, had all those surgeries and overcame that and got himself in a position where he was at Baylor. 2 years there, he averaged 12 points, 7 boards, a couple of blocks, and like I said, in position to probably be a late first round, early second round pick of the NBA draft this Thursday. Instead, finds out that not only will he not be drafted, but he will no longer have a professional sports career, as he was found to have Marfan syndrome and told to immediately stop. As like I said, he could literally drop dead on the court from overexertion. So, but I wanted to finish that because there was some people that asked me to. So there you go. I'm going to go to the phone lines before we go back into the show. I want to talk some more Tribe, but first, I'm going to open it up to you guys. Caller, you're first up on the Sports Fix.
Hi, Jerry. This is Betty. How are you?
Hey, I'm great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Enjoying my summer break. Hey,
right.
Welcome to Cleveland, David Blatt, right? I'm excited.
That's right. I'm with it. I told you. I think it's outside the box, man. I definitely like it better than one of these guys that was just fired from somewhere else and they're stopping here on their way to getting fired somewhere else, you know?
Oh, he may not have any NBA experience, but he's got a lot of lot of experience in basketball and bringing teams to winning. So I think he's going to be a good positive for us. Along with that, and our number 1 draft pick, and whatever happens with the Jarrett Jackson, Marcus Thornton situation, and the Kyrie situation. And
I heard that.
I'm excited.
Let me tell you something. You mentioned that. For those of you out there listening that have heard about the Jarrett Jack and Marcus Thornton trade rumors, from what I hear, that is absolutely not true. Now, there are some Jarrett Jack trade offers out there, but that one is one that blew up over the weekend, and it's not one that I've heard the Cavaliers have been involved in. You mentioned Blatt and him not having NBA experience. Looking past that, I'm just saying, looking at his record, here's one of the things that I saw said the most about him. It said for every team that he coached at whatever level, what he was known for was getting more out of his team than the talent that they had. That is something that's just, to me, that's an intangible. That's more than just X's and O's. And I don't just mean in basketball, in any sport. Those are the coaches that are special. And I'm not saying he's going to do that in the NBA. He's going to have to prove that he can. But that's always key. It's the guy that gets more out of the talent than the talent that they have. And I think that's something that Terry Francona does. That's one of his skills that I think he brings to the table. And I think that's what he is known for elsewhere. So if he can learn how to coach at the NBA level as far as dealing with the egos and stuff, then I think it's as good of a risk as anything else they could have done. I was not interested in any of the Cavs coaching candidates. So, to me, it's definitely the best of the batch you had. But, hey, there's not a lot of risk to this because the Cavs were in a position where they didn't exactly have Phil Jackson and Mark Jackson beating down their door, and I think they made the best of the situation that they were in. But, anyways, go ahead, Betty.
Yeah, no, I would happen to agree with you there. I mean, I see he brings, what I'm reading, he brings to the team on both ends of the court. This is what you and I talked about. This is what our team needs to advance them to the next level, to transition them into the next level. And we have talent. We just need to move them, and we need someone to keep. I know what you said about Kyrie, but we need to keep some of our players on board because I believe he can. Like I said, he can transition them to the next level. I got to tell you,
that's one of the things that I heard from my guy in Cleveland here, that from the Cavaliers, that won him this job. One of the things that won him this job was what he told David Griffin, and I don't know, I'm not privy to the conversation, but it was what he sold as his plan for getting these players, especially Kyrie and Dion, for getting them to maximize their abilities together. Because clearly, if you can't do that, you're dead in the water.
True. I would agree. We'll see what happens. I'll be at the draft party on Thursday this year downtown. Are you going to be down there at the draft party?
No, I don't. Not the Cavaliers one. I'll probably be doing something, though.
Like last year, that was a lot of fun. Yeah, I'm excited to see who they pick. I'm hoping for Parker. They're comparing him to Tim Duncan. Well, we don't know his record. So let's see if that's who they pick or they do it off the wall.
I've never heard anybody compare him to that, but, I do think it'll be interesting to see. Like I said, there's some trade offers out there. It's no guarantee that the Cavs take anybody there. Hang on, though. Somebody in the chat room just told me something. Betty, I got to call you out here about this. Who's World Be Free? Are you not familiar with World Be Free, Betty?
I just found out. I just found that out last week. Yes, I'm not gonna lie. I just found that out about a week or so ago. Yeah, so 2 weeks
Betty,
ago.
You are a Cavaliers fan, a huge Cavaliers fan. Oh, see, you and I are gonna have to sit down and talk here, do lunch, or World Be Free. That's a cornerstone of your Cavaliers education, Betty.
Well, you're right. But see, back then I was more of a Chicago Bulls fan, so I was younger and dumb and in my own little life. Yeah, I know who he is now. I know he's.
Gotta do your research, Betty. Gotta do your research. All right. Hey, great phone call, Betty. Anything else real quick before we go?
No, I'll talk to you again real soon.
All right, great phone call, Betty. Do your research. World be free, baby. World be free, man. Anyways, I love it. Giving her a hard time. I saw that in the chat room. I said I gotta call Betty out on this. Man, you can't say you're Cavs through and through and then not know the world be free. Got to do your research. I'm gonna have to take Betty out. I'm gonna have to do a research lunch with her, and we'll just have to go through all the important names. Hey guys, phones are open 216-539-7535. 216-539-7535. And like I said, though, they're very interesting to see. And you know what? We'll see what the Cavaliers do with these, whether they take a pick or whether they, and there's a lot of people back and forth. I mean, people that I trust, whose basketball opinions I trust, really kind of split on the whole Jabari Parker and the Andrew Wiggins argument, because there's arguments to be made for both. What I find funny with when I look too is because a lot of times we talk about the late risers, and I'm not saying Wiggins falls in that category, but you look back to the beginning of the season, and Parker was somebody whose name was kind of in everybody's discussion when you looked ahead to the draft, and then things changed during the season. I mean, Embiid came out of nowhere. I mean, obviously, rightfully so with his size and his projections, but, and Wiggins got himself in there, and there was some changing around. But I think the guy who was there at the beginning is still there at the end, and then that could be a couple of different arguments there. But I think that kind of leans me a little bit towards Parker there, because there's something to be said for the guy who, had the pressure coming in and the spotlight, and then at the end he's still in the conversation. That doesn't mean that you lock your rating in and you stick with it, but but he's projected to be, I guess a lot of people say, the most NBA ready, the one that could jump in right now and contribute to a team, and but maybe a bigger upside on Wiggins. I don't know. Again, both guys bring an interesting skill set. I was a Wiggins guy. Part of me is leaning towards Jabari Parker, but then part of me says, hey man, if you can get a deal where you can swing, I like Thaddeus Young. I like that if the offer is the number 3 swapping the number 1 with, and you get Thaddeus Young thrown in there on it, that may be something to talk about. But anyways, we'll talk more about this as the days lead up to Thursday. We're up against it. I've got the Indians game to talk about too. We'll get into that with Dan Wismar. Let me take a break here. Let's get this out of the way. Let's get my man John McMullen from the Sports Network in. Betty, thanks for the phone call and Cavaliers conversation. Wednesday, David Blatt will be announced and introduced officially as the next head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and the very next day, the first decision made. Not that it's just his decision, but as he sits down with David Griffin and they go out and make that move, whatever it's going to be. Thursday, as I said, a big week for the Cavaliers franchise here. So we'll talk more about that. We're going to take a break. We'll talk Indians here in a little bit with Dan Wismar when we come back. John McMullen from the Sports Network going to join us here. Talk a little bit about the latest with the NFL. We'll talk about Joe Hayden's comments about Johnny football. He's got a good point, too. We'll talk about that coming up. Chad Johnson playing in the, not the Arena League, he's playing in the Canadian League as he gets a little season warm-up this weekend. And know your surroundings. That's going to be important for NFL players over the next 4 to 6 weeks. We'll talk about all of that. John McMullen from the Sports Network rejoins the show coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
And headed for home, it's a brown-eyed handsome man. Anyone can understand the way I feel. Oh, put me in cold, I'm ready to play today. Put me in cold.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You've just crossed over into
The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Before we go to the break, guys, I want to talk to you just a second about our friends at GV Art and Design. Baseball's here once again. Cleveland, of course, excited, and GV Artwork teaming up with the Indians, and they're both going to knock it out of the park this season. And listen to some of the new designs they've got for Cleveland baseball fans everywhere. They've dug out an old classic, and they're bringing the heat with the new Wild Thing, Give 'em the Heater Ricky design. GV Artwork is teaming up with Cleveland fan favorite Michael Brantley and created a custom Dr. Smooth t-shirt. Plus, don't forget, they've got the Cleveland That I Glove collection, new tribal and Cleveland That I Love designs for women, and so much more. You can get GV Artwork designs on the website, gvartwork.com. And don't forget to use the sales code FIX10, that's FIX10, and you'll save 10% on your purchase. Or you can check out their new store in Lakewood on Detroit Avenue. Check them out in the Indians team shops and so much more. Cleveland That we all love, GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your automotive car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. They're open late Monday through Thursday until 9 p.m. and open early Saturday so you can check it off your to-do list and get on with your day. They also have a newly remodeled service lounge and additional service bay just for Quick Lane oil changes. Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is located at 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View, just down the road from Independence. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck. That's QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
No football? No problem at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. From their awesome Wing Mondays to every single Cavaliers and Buckeye Hoops games in full HD, the excitement never stops. Every day of the week brings a different set of food and amazing drink specials. Fight fans, Harry Buffalo North Olmsted is the home for every UFC pay-per-view live on the big screens. And let's not forget their mouth-watering trademark, the Bison Burger. Nobody does bison like Harry Buffalo. The perfect combination of healthy and delicious. What are you waiting for? Get to Harry Buffalo, just outside Great Northern Mall today. Harry Buffalo. Join the herd.
Business owners and professionals, do you want to take your business, your product, your team, your event to the next level? You want to advertise right here with the Sports Fix. Our listeners are among the most loyal listeners, terrestrial or internet. The Sports Fix universe is not only the radio show, but tens of thousands of fans on Facebook and Twitter. Email me, Jerry Myers, thesportsfix@AOL.com. That's thesportsfix@AOL.com. And let me help you swing for the fences and hit it out of the park right here on the Sports Fix.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by Signs and Ship, the official printing source of the Sports Fix. Locations in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Virginia, and Florida. Find out more at signsandship.com.
News break.
Good morning, I'm Bob Picozzi. So here's the scenario. The U.S. can advance into the World Cup's knockout round with a winner draw against Germany on Thursday, or if Portugal and Ghana tie. If the U.S. loses and either Portugal or Ghana win, then it comes down to goal differential. The goal in the final seconds last night gave Portugal a 2-2 draw, with Coach Jurgen Klinsmann's U.S. team at least delaying the clinching of a berth in the round of 16.
Well, obviously, when you get it in the last second, it's unfortunate. But I think it was an amazing game, amazing performance by our guys. Nothing more they can ask for. We just go it the tougher way. So we got to go and we got to beat Germany. Get a result against Germany. That's what we're going to do.
If the U.S. ties Germany, both teams will advance. World Cup coverage resumes today. The Netherlands meets Chile at noon Eastern on ESPN. Spain, Australia, noon Eastern, ESPN2. Both matches on some of these ESPN radio stations. On opening day at Wimbledon, it's now live on ESPN. Third-seeded Andy Murray leads David Goffin 2 sets to love and 6-4 in the third. American Sloane Stephens upset by Maria Kirilenko. As expected, Carmelo Anthony has informed the Knicks he's opting out of his contract.
SportsCenter is brought to you by Hyundai. The entire world is watching because football. Share the passion at becausefootball.com. Hyundai, official partner of the FIFA World Cup Brazil 2014. You're listening to the Sports Fix.
make a big noise playing in the
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here on the sportsfix.net and across TuneIn and the TuneIn radio app worldwide and on Spreaker and Mixler as well. And those of you listening on digital delay on iHeartRadio, the world's largest internet radio provider, on Spreaker and SoundCloud, Stitcher Radio, and CarPlay, and all of the podcast formats as well. Welcome back in. J-Rocc back with you as we roll on with the show in just a moment. Going to be joined on the phone lines by my man John McMullen from the Sports Network. He's with us every Monday here as we talk NFL, we talk Browns, and heading into the slow period for the NFL here, the dark period, which is why perhaps most not intriguing, but most important, the stress that a lot of coaches put on their players. And we know well here in Cleveland to not only know your surroundings, but to keep an eye on them at all times, because this is that danger zone where teams' plans for the season can get changed. As we know, still in the dark zone ourselves here, wondering what's going to happen with Josh Gordon, which, by the way, guys, before I go to John, Friday we had heard that there was a possibility of something being announced in that 24-hour period, but that came and went and didn't go. And so now I'm hearing sometime perhaps in the next 2 weeks. It got me wondering, what exactly the holdup has been. But I'll see if John's got a clue about that too. So hey, phone lines are closed. Hit us up on Facebook, facebook.com/thesportsfix. Tweet with us at thesportsfixcle. I'm going to the phone lines. John McMullen from the Sports Network. How you doing, my man?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for being here as always. And I guess I'll start with what I was just saying there. Do you have any, have you heard anything on why the continued delay as people wait, not just fans, but the Browns wait to find out what the fate of Josh Gordon is going to be this season? Any idea why it hasn't come out yet?
No, that's one of the problems. I talked about this before. It's one of the problems with the actual policy itself, and I think the NFL has an issue, and one of the major issues is the fact that they don't really explain the penalty policy, because sometimes Roger Goodell acts right away, sometimes it takes so much amount of time, and people look at it and say, why isn't he doing this? Specifically regarding Jim Irsay, Ray Rice, Alden Smith, Josh Gordon, what have you. And it's collectively bargained between the players and owners. One of the big hurdles, and I think the NFL doesn't do a very good job of this, is the fact that the Players Association works very hard to keep everything under wraps, and they don't want things made public. So when there's arguments as far as appeals of suspensions, it can take a rather long time, and I think a lot of times the NFLPA is the side that's being disingenuous, because they're the ones trying to put up the hurdles behind the scenes. In front of the cameras, they'll act in a totally different manner, and the NFL is really powerless because they can't make anything public, and I think that's the issue where you see. So I don't think it's the NFL dragging its heels as much as it is the players.
I mean, you just, obviously, too, the Browns have gone on with their other plans and what they're going to do, and I think they still have more to do. As we haven't even talked about it, but they let Earl Bennett go, one of the guys that they picked up. He didn't even make it to training camp here. They let him go after the last mini camp. So I think they still have some more moves to make, but it just, not just the Browns. I'm thinking about it if it was a team that I wasn't connected to. I mean, to be left in limbo, that really does stink from the team's perspective of being stuck in that kind of, limbo zone where you're not sure how long, you're going to have to deal with something, but you don't even know how long you're going to have to deal with it.
Well, I think the teams know more than they're letting on. I mean, I don't think the teams are kept in the dark as the casual public is, even the media. I think they know Cleveland fully understands what's going on behind the scenes and why it hasn't been announced yet. Certainly it's not like Roger Goodell is keeping them in the dark. And, one of the major reasons they made those moves and, signing Miles Austin, Earl Bennett. Obviously, Earl Bennett didn't work out at all.
No.
Was the fact that they thought that, Josh Gordon is going to be gone for the year. And I think that's still the thought process. I know that was the report that came out last week that the NFL is investigating its marijuana testing and consequences. I'm not buying that simply because, again, this is, I think people, even people sometimes in my business, don't understand what's going on here. It's not about public perception of marijuana. It's not about a more progressive or liberal thinking on marijuana. This has already been adjudicated, so to speak, in the fact that it's in the collective bargaining agreement. So to change it, you would have to reopen the CBA, which is always possible. It's not impossible. But certainly the players, if it means that much to them, the Players Association is going to have to go to the NFL and say, look, let's make this a lot less stringent, and they're going to have to give something in return, whether that's HGH testing or something of that nature. Either way, I don't think it's going to have any effect on people like Darrell Washington and Josh Gordon and Justin Blackmon, who have already been caught up in the net. The only possibility that could help Josh Gordon, that could help the Cleveland Browns, is the fact that there was an issue with the actual test that he failed, as far as, it not being above board, a chain of custody type thing, which has been an issue in the past, something like that. As far as the NFL all of a sudden waking up and saying, hey, we think marijuana smoking is fine, I think that, and whether it's coming from fans or members of the media, I think that's just an uneducated view of the actual substance abuse policy.
And like you said, even if, on top of all that, even if that was happening, the odds that it would go retroactive to the guys that are currently stuck up in it is totally different, because even I've heard anything that they do will affect future incidences and players, but not going backwards retroactive, because again, it's not just as cut and dry in that. And what we're talking about here sets perfectly up for why I mentioned what I said. And as you saw, out there in the news, specifically, Jim Harbaugh warning his players, but all coaches doing the same thing as these final mini camps ended up, which was the equivalent of watch where you're at all times, know your surroundings, know where your friends are, know what's going on, because that's how we see guys get caught up. I mean, Colin Kaepernick, his situation, he was, and so quickly how the media jumped on that like it was the next big scandal, and then very quickly backed off when they saw that the story was totally different than the way it first came out. But that's how you end up in situations, and all of the coaches and teams worry about this 4 to 6 week window right here of guys doing something right on the verge of heading into camp.
Yeah, they really do. This is the toughest time of year in a lot of ways for NFL coaches. It's not like you can't get in trouble when you have something to do, but it's far less likely. And when you send off a group of young men and who have a lot of means as far as money and access to things. And they're all for 4 to 6 weeks. I always harken back to my Catholic youth days of going to Catholic school. And, idle hands is the devil's workshop is one proverb that always stuck with me. And I wrote about it last year in the Aaron Hernandez case. And obviously that's a worst case scenario for any NFL team. But, basically what it means is that if you don't have anything to do, you're far more likely to get into trouble. And it's not just with NFL players, it's with everyday life. And I think if you'll see it, people around the country can see it with their own friends and family. If somebody doesn't have something to do, they're far more likely to get in some kind of trouble. It's just human nature. And it's very, obviously, when you talk about professional athletes, it's under the microscope more, and it's just something coaches don't want to have to deal with. Is it could be anything from a DUI all the way up to what the horrible things Aaron Hernandez is accused of. But it's certainly a tough time. But I will say this: one thing that I think is unfair to the NFL, if you look at FBI statistics, you can do the math. NFL players, and this shocks people, and I say this, every year at this time, it stuns people to no end. But NFL players actually get arrested less than the general public, and people don't believe that, but it's true. It's just, obviously, if you're famous, it's going to be in the newspaper, and that's what happens. But, as a whole, most NFL players are like most people in regular society. They're pretty good people, and they go about their lives, and they do what they're supposed to do, and they don't get in much trouble. But obviously, the ones that do, that's going to be on the front page of TMZ, as you always say.
For sure, and I'll tell you what, definitely something that NFL front offices, keep in the back of their mind at all times. Funny, too, to segue that right into something, I saw Joe Hayden the other day doing an interview, and of course they talked to him about Johnny Manziel, and he likes his attitude and his swagger and all that, and the way he's becoming a part of the team. But he talked about how Johnny needs to find himself a phone valet. And now I would go a little further and say just be a little more responsible with what you do and how you broadcast it. But that's not a bad point that he's got there, as far as, at least, and I've got friends that do that. We don't have an actual term for it, but it's like, hey, hold on to the cell phones here so that nobody's doing nothing stupid, because it's the easiest thing to do is to, have a buzz on and tweet something out, and then a few hours later your texts are going off, hey, what did you say? And you're like, what did I say? And then you go back and you go, oh, man, So that's not a bad point. But I'll tell you what, and I don't know if you've heard the same thing, but for everybody that thinks it's just a sports talk media something to talk about right now with John Manziel, there are, and I'm telling you, I got this directly from within the organization, but there are concerns and there have been discussions with him in the last week to 10 days about his activities and the fact that they want to make sure that he does not have a problem when it comes to drinking. And I know there's some people that'll go, oh, man, you're crazy. You're jumping off the ledge too quick. I'm telling you, this is the way the Browns are thinking right now. So this isn't Jerry telling you, hey, go check on Johnny Football. I'm telling you that the Browns are thinking this and doing it themselves. They're not publicizing it, but there's been some discussions behind the scenes with him because that is something that they're worried about. Not the perception, the reality. John, I don't know, you want to expound on that a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it. We haven't talked in a while, but the last time we talked, we said that. If the Cleveland Browns aren't thinking that way, I think you should be more concerned about the Cleveland Browns organization. They have to be concerned. It's human nature. I mean, we talked about it of the weekends he's had off, whether it's he's jetted off to Hollywood, he's jetted off to Las Vegas, Houston again. There was the latest one with. He's pictured with a very attractive model who was, had some issues with Justin Bieber and Deshaun Jackson in the past. Again, none of this is, I understand the people defending Johnny Manziel. No one's accusing him of doing anything wrong. Technically, he has not done anything wrong. But I always go back to the story, and I heard this story directly from sources close to inside the Minnesota Vikings organization. And Mike Zimmer, who wanted, Johnny Manziel, tried to move into that 22nd slot to draft him, just like Cleveland did. His final question to Johnny Manziel is, he said, "I've been waiting, over 20 years for this chance. Are you going to screw me?" That's what he asked him. That's the mentality of NFL scouts. And Johnny Manziel, because his reputation at Texas A&M, whether it's deserved or not, was that he didn't do the off-the-field stuff. He had maturity issues. He was more concerned with being a star than being a football player. He got over with his athleticism. He relied on his athleticism. He didn't do the homework off the field. That was the mentality of the scouts who took shots. And, anything he has done to this point in his very, very short NFL career has pointed to them being right and his defenders being wrong. That doesn't mean he can't turn it around. That doesn't mean when he gets to training camp he can't settle down and become a hard worker. It's just, if you're in Las Vegas and you're placing odds and you're looking at a guy's behavior, it's not good. And if the Cleveland Browns aren't concerned, they're not doing their job. So I would look at that as a positive thing for Cleveland. And I mentioned that a couple of weeks ago when we talked. The Browns have to be talking to him behind the scenes, have to be trying to get through to him, and have to be trying to make him understand. At the bare minimum, a phone valet, whatever. If you're not getting, we can go back to stories of Joe Namath back in the 60s and 70s, Mickey Mantle in baseball, of carousing all days, and they became Hall of Fame players. But they understood, as far as it goes, especially being a quarterback of a National Football League team, in today's environment where everything is captured on social media, you have to understand the position you're in. And if you don't understand the position you're in, then you start to question some of the other decision-making skills. And if you're just trying to be, trying to give, if you're trying to be impudent to other people, whatever it has you, none of it points in a good direction. And this is not to criticize his football ability or say he can't turn it around or say he can't mature. But if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I'm very concerned.
I'm with you, man. That's one of the things I wanted to mention here. I mean, and again, like you said, it does not preclude any of the other things from happening. It doesn't mean anything. But man, if you think that, and what I try to stress to people is, so many people come at me and go, man, these are media creations. This is just stuff that people want to talk about on your show and on the radio and no. And if you think it is, then you're fooling yourself. And that's why, you stress that the Browns they're not looking past all this. And, if you think they are, you're nuts. But again, we'll see a lot of time on all of that. I wanted to bring it up too. Speaking of, we're talking a lot about, as of course, Johnny Football, the number 22 pick. The first round pick for the Browns is one of only 6 players left. They've got 250 of 256 of the NFL's total draft picks have signed their contracts here. And I know with all the slotting in that, there's not a lot of the problems before with the holdouts and things, so I don't expect it to take very long. But do you have any, because I don't have any real insight on this, what the delay is? Justin Gilbert is the highest draft pick, still not signed. Are they just haggling over the offset amount and that, or how quickly do you think they wrap things up and him and the other 6? Only 6. That's amazing. Only 6 of them still left unsigned, but Justin Gilbert, the highest one.
Yeah, who knows? Maybe he didn't get the facts. It's the offset language is the last thing that anyone argued about. It was the biggest sticking point, and now that's pretty much been a done deal. And the fact that it's not an issue anymore. So you've seen it. The holdout as far as rookie goes in the NFL is non-existent.
Yes,
he'll be in camp. It's just a matter of some teams did it real quick. The Rams, I think, signed all their players in one day. It's just really more bookkeeping than anything else. And while I joke about the facts, it might be it. It just might be they haven't gotten on the phone with the agent at the proper time, because there's no question he's going to be in. There's no leverage on either side, and he'll be there, and it won't be an issue, and that's the one good thing of the 2011 collective bargaining agreement. A lot of bad things with that as far as off-season stuff, at least as far as the organizations think, and players at the facility, and really work with them. Can't have pads on, can't have hitting, can't do any of that stuff. Two-a-days are virtually a thing of the past. And that's affected tackling. But one of the good things is the fact that, there is no more of that rookie nonsense and those rookie holdouts.
Right, because not only are you not waiting for these ridiculous contracts of unproven players, but you had to go in order. Like, it would be like, oh, okay, the 8th pick is signed, so now 9 and 10 should start to have an idea for their market. And you had to wait for everybody's market to be set, and then the next guy would start negotiating. It would just be, it's so much better this way here. As you can see, I mean, clearly, it was only 6 players that have not been signed total out of all of the draft there. What is, for that 8th slot, what is it? Gilbert's somewhere around, 4-year, $22-23 million. Isn't that about what that 8th pick slot is?
Yeah, I don't have the numbers in front of me right here, but yeah, everything's 4
Something
years
like
now.
that.
And again, the only issue in the past was the offset language, and that's when a team that cuts a player, within that 4 years, it was basically if he landed on a new team, then he could get the double dip, where if there was no offset language, the Browns would have to pay him and the new team would have to pay him. And basically with offset language, then, it's a dollar for dollar credit, so to speak. So basically that's what the teams were fighting for. They want that offset language in the contract. And they basically won on that issue. No one complains about it anymore. So, again, I don't have the full knowledge of what's going on with him specifically, but I'm sure it's nothing regarding offset language. I'm sure that's going to be in the contract, and I'm sure he's going to be in camp. It's just, for some reason, the 6 guys, maybe they're on vacation, maybe their agents are on vacation. It doesn't make a lot of sense. The one issue is you really see with those 3rd round picks more than anything else, because there's a couple hiccups where guys got paid more than their slot, and then all of a sudden that creates things out of balance. And that took a little bit longer for certain 3rd round picks to play, but you never see that in the top 10.
You're listening to the Sports Fix as we cross over into hour 2, talking to my man John McMullen from the Sports Network. A couple of things before I let you go, looking outside of Cleveland here. Chad Johnson, of course, he was a foe for some time with the Bengals, and as we know, he's a character, Ocho Cinco, and playing in the CFL. Matter of fact, playing on the same team as former Clevelander and NFL quarterback Troy Smith. Interesting to see. What do you think? Do you think Ocho has anything left in the tank? And let's say he plays well here. Do you think that there's any type of, we see teams like the Browns who are looking for, and I'm not saying them now, but do you see any potential for Chad Johnson to get back into the NFL?
Well, you never say never when the injuries start piling up, and I've seen stranger things, but you're talking about a guy who's I'd have to look it up, but he's got to be 35, 36 right now. So, 30 is pretty much a dirty word in today's NFL, and so you talk to a guy playing a skill position in his mid-30s. Obviously, he's going to have lost a step, and then there's the off-the-field stuff, the nonsense, and the fact that he's not going to be the quietest guy in the locker room. So, I would say it's very, very unlikely you'll see Chad Johnson in the NFL again. But again, as it goes late into a season and teams get desperate and maybe they need a veteran presence to get over the hump to get into the playoffs. I guess, but I would place that as a 5 to 10% scenario at best. I just think guys like Chad Johnson, Terrell Owens too, just too much baggage, and we've seen it time and time again with players in the prime of their careers, NFL players. You saw, Deshaun Jackson in Philadelphia is the best example of that. He's coming off a career year, and the Eagles let him go because he was a pain in the rump. So. I don't, I find it very hard to believe there would be many coaches willing to take on a guy like that at, age 35, 36.
Yeah, he's 36 years old. He'll turn 37 in January. His last, I guess, any kind of meaningful on-field activity in the NFL was in the 2011 season. So he's definitely I thought it was interesting. Him playing Troy Smith, I always keep tabs on him anyway. coming from this area, and he's somebody. I don't know what exactly went south. I really thought that Troy Smith, if he had gotten an opportunity somewhere, could have continued with his NFL career, but I don't know what. I mean, I don't know how much you know about him, but Troy Smith is somebody that I thought definitely finished short of what I thought he could have done. It just seemed like opportunities when he was about to get an opportunity, something changed. He had the injury. I think he got sick at one point, and some bad luck as well with his NFL career.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said finish short. I think that's always been Troy Smith's issue, and as far as NFL scouts, and I think maybe he came around a few years too early because he's a guy who's, I think they list him at 6 foot, but he's not 6 foot. He's probably 5'10", 5'11". So, back when he, I say back in the day, I think he was maybe a 2006 or 7 fifth-round pick, somewhere in that range. And he, even that, we're only talking about 7-8 years ago. And guys who are that short just weren't looked at as real long-term prospects as NFL quarterbacks, and we've seen over the past few years, obviously Russell Wilson most notably last year, but even Drew Brees at 6 foot have won Super Bowl championships. But you look at Russell Wilson, that's who the kind of quarterback Troy Smith was, at least on the college level, as far as, his ability to extend plays and his athleticism. And I think maybe in his case, he came around a few years too early, and that people weren't willing to look at guys at that stature. That said, I don't think he had that innate ability that Russell Wilson has, where he was able to always keep his eyes downfield. I think he was more of a duck his head guy and go. So, but he stuck around for a few years as a backup quarterback, and I think when he came out of Ohio State, I think that's what people projected him as, and but who knows if he came around a few years later, he might have been a 10, 11-year backup instead of a 2 or 3 year backup.
Yeah, because he came, actually it was 2007 was when he was drafted, so the 07-08 season was actually his rookie season, which is, 5-6 years removed from where we're at now. So, yeah, he spent those couple years with Baltimore and then San Francisco one season, and he's been out of the NFL pretty much since then, of course starting for Montreal now, but always a soft spot for the hometown boy there, Troy Smith. Hey, last question for you, because I just saw it, and I said, you know what, there was a lot of talk, and I know Joe Hayden made the top 40 of the NFL top 100, but I saw the other day was an AP, just joking around about how people think Peyton may be the number one player. He's the number one player. I just wanted to ask you, who do you think, as things stand now, if you had to pick the overall best player, like you would build around one guy, here's your best player in the NFL, who do you think standing here today is the number one player in the NFL?
Well, I hate those lists, number one, because I think it's so hard to compare offense and defense. And then there's different questions. Who would you build around? Obviously would be a quarterback. I think the best pure football player in the league right now is probably J.J. Watt of the Houston Texans, who's just so far above and beyond every defensive player. I think offensively, it would still be Adrian Peterson. But, obviously quarterbacks, the position just means so much more. I think, first you look at that position. And I think when he's healthy, I think the guy with the biggest impact on the game remains Aaron Rodgers. So I would, gun to my head, I would still put Aaron Rodgers at number one overall.
Interesting. I was curious where you're at on that, and I hear you on all of those. I mean, J.J. Watt, from a pure, looking at everything, I could see there's no way he wouldn't be in a lot of top 5 lists. But you're right, it's a very, very subjective thing. I just saw that, and I said, man, last question. I'm just going to ask John who he thinks is at the top of the peak there in the NFL. Hey, I'll tell you what, I'm sure, as much as the coaches hope that every Monday you and I have nothing to talk about for the next 4 or 5 weeks, but I'm sure that won't be the case. So I thank you once again for joining us and look forward to seeing what we can get into next week, John.
Hey, always fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. As always, on Mondays, my man, John McMullen from the Sports Network. Always a good time. He'll be with us next Monday. We're going to take a break. When we come back, my man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan joins us. We'll pick up some more of that Indians conversation from over the weekend. Is it time to seriously talk about, and you know what? The Indians have been in the discussion. Scouts out, checking out David Price. They're one of the teams that I hear right in the thick of things, looking towards a potential trade there. But is it time to bulk up that starting rotation? We're going to talk about that and so much more with my man Dan Wismar. Omar came back to town. They love them 90s, as you saw. 100,000 plus in the place this weekend. We'll talk to Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan coming up next here on the Sports Fix.
We here at the Sports Fix are very in-depth when we interview the sports stars.
Oh, I saw the whole thing, dude. First you were all like, whoa, and then we were like, whoa, and then you were like, whoa. What are you talking about? You call serious thrill issues, dude. Oh, awesome. Ooh.
Maybe not, but you should still listen.
As we head into this break, I just want to remind you the Sports Fix proud to be partners with Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck, 5715 Canal Road, just under the 480 Bridge in Valley View, Ohio. Bill Hershey and Bill Opalich, I tell you about them each and every day. They'll take care of you. Number one, huge Cleveland sports fans, but they're good people, hardworking people, trustworthy people. I don't just come on here, I tell you this all the time, I don't just come on here and talk about places and people that want to buy advertising on the show. I talk about people and products that I believe in, and Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck is one of those places. Whether you've got a truck, car, van, commercial vehicle, big or small, it doesn't matter. They'll fix them all. They're the home of the low price tire guarantee. Find a matching set of tires cheaper anywhere else, and they'll match the price guaranteed, no questions asked, no matter what it is. Hey, and they understand in 2013 that there's transportation issues. People need to get to school, to work, to daycare. All those things need to get done, and the car needs to get fixed, and they'll figure out a way to make that happen for you. Check them out, quicklane.com/Valley Ford Truck, and find out that life really is better in the Quick Lane.
Hey, Cleveland, this is Ed Doherty, voice of St. Ignatius Wildcat football, and you're listening to the Sports Fix.
In baseball, miracles can happen when a team works together.
2 out, bottom of the ninth, down to their last strike.
The same is true in the fight against cancer. That's why MLB has teamed up with Stand Up to Cancer. Because we believe that when we all stand up together,
41,000 on their feet,
we can make cancer history.
Now everybody's standing.
What a buzz in this building.
This is beyond a dream. Stand up with MLB at standuptocancer.org.
The Sports Fix is now available every day on the world's largest internet radio service, iHeartRadio. Download the free iHeartRadio app, subscribe to the show, and get your fix.
At the corner of Carnegie and Ontario, it's basketball time at the Q. Cleveland rocks!
Have you gotten your copy of Cleveland's Finest yet? Highlighting the best moments, players, and media members in Cleveland sports history?
He won it! Elo hit a three-pointer on the side!
In-depth personal interviews with some of the top names in Cleveland sports fill the pages of this incredible book.
Joe Day,
Fred McLeod,
Hector Marinero.
Discussing the most intimate and sometimes controversial details of the largest moments in our town's sports history.
The Indians have won the divisional title.
A perfect game for Len Barker.
What a win for the Cleveland Cavaliers. Their first time in a playoff.
It's the first book written from the players' point of view, with the media that covered it and the fans that watched. Finally, the true stories are told, from a miracle in Richfield to the NBA Finals.
The Detroit Pistons have been booby-trapped.
From a perfect game to a World Series one pitch from victory. From a Wildcat High School dynasty to the golden days of the Browns, Barons, and Crunch, this book will change the way the entire sports nation looks at Cleveland.
Cleveland, you will have an October to remember.
Cleveland's Finest by Vince McKee is this year's must-have book for every Cleveland sports fan. Available now at Amazon.com. Get your copy today.
Back in 1990, when I joined Herb in the booth, you could say that first game was when I became a lifelong Tribe fan. Something about Cleveland made us want to stay and call it our home, raise our family here. I can promise you one thing, home or on the road, I feel what you folks feel, what you feel every game. Cleveland fans are passionate and pretty vocal. I respect that. This is our team. This is our town. This is a tribe town.
Portions of the Sports Fix brought to you by GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement. GVArtwork.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix Live here on the sportsfix.net. J-Rocc back with you. Show rolling on. Hey, you can hit us up, not on the phone lines, but on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/The Sports Fix. Tweet with us at The Sports Fix. CLE, all one word. And we're going to go to the phone line in just a minute. Talk to my man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. We'll pick up talking a little bit earlier about the Indians. 100,000 in the park, unfortunately. An egg laid on the results, although, well, we'll get into talking about that here in a minute. Omar and all of that. Let's go to the phones. My man, Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. Dan, how you doing this Monday afternoon?
Oh, not doing too bad, Jerry. Good to be with you.
As always,
been one of those character building days here so far today, but the show must go on, right?
I'm with you. I understand. I know I was getting your texts in the first segment of the show, and I was like, oh, man, this is going to be one of those days. So, hey, but I'm glad you were able to be with us here. And I mean, is your stuff taken care of, or are you in the middle of it?
Well, I'm operating without a computer at the moment because I think I had some rubbing and some fraying of my electrical wires outside, which caused some surges, which blew my surge protectors out. I have yet to find out whether it also messed up my TV and my computer or whatever else. That's a mystery yet to be solved. But so we're operating without the computer today, but hey, we'll wing it.
Those are always those fun days when you have problems and don't yet know what problems those problems have caused yet. Those are always the funnest.
Exactly right. So anyway, 100,000 at the ballpark was a good sign, even if we had to celebrate a Detroit Tigers coach in order to get it. But it was a nice scene, I think, the other day.
No, absolutely. I mean, hey, even if you want to take out Saturday, I mean, they still did pretty much 30 the other 2 days, 26 and 29 or whatever added up to. But so they it was still a good weekend. And, I look, so many people, oh, man, they did it again. They laid an egg. And they do definitely have a tendency of doing that. I don't just subscribe to the theory that because people came out and the Indians didn't win that they're not coming back, because if that's the case, the Browns stadium would be empty, And that's not being a joke. That's not making fun of the Browns. I'm saying if the results were strictly the reason, then that would be the case. So I do believe that obviously getting those casual fans to come out and get them to go, that yes, winning and losing is a part of their excitement, but it's not all of it. It's not all of it. I mean, and I don't think that all 100,000 people that came through there this weekend left there saying, damn it, I'm never going back again. When's training camp start? I'm sure some of them did, but not the vast majority of them. I think the vast majority, especially on Friday and Saturday, for the most part, enjoyed the game. They were well-played baseball games. I mean, yeah, the result wasn't the same. Sunday, to me, was the lone laying of an egg, in my opinion. I mean, you are still talking about the Detroit Tigers, but either way, I don't think everybody left there saying, I'm never coming back.
No, certainly not. And one thing that a lot of people don't really get is that these were not walk-up crowds for the Detroit Tigers. I haven't heard the figures of what the walk-ups are, but the largest walk-up crowds ever in the history of Progressive Field are in the neighborhood of 5,000 or 6,000 people. Yeah. When you sell 42,000, that means those tickets were sold a month ago, 2 months ago, before the season started. It just doesn't happen that they get flash crowds of 40,000. Those tickets are sold well in advance. Another reason why, the fact that they won or lost isn't going to affect those people's ticket buying habits, because most people's ticket buying habits are in the preseason, and a much smaller percentage are of the walk-up variety. Hey, let's go to the ball yard tonight. So I think too much is made of that. I think they knew several days beforehand that Saturday was a sellout. That tells you right there that it wasn't a walk-up crowd that did it.
Well, Saturday didn't actually sell out, though, until the middle of the day on Saturdays. There was a few thousand standing room only tickets available and some things like that. But you're right.
Right.
Actually, I talked to, while you're bringing that up, I pulled up my conversation Friday on the air. We were talking about this and we were projecting the attendance, and I reached out to Curtis Danberg, and he didn't get back with me until we went off the air. But on Friday afternoon, his projection of where the games were going to end up was pretty close. He had mid-30s on Friday night. He said, we hope a sellout tomorrow, because they were pretty close. They were a few thousand away, and they did that. And then mid-20s on Sunday. So his estimates lead me to believe that they did a few thousand walk-up for each game, but I tend to think those were a lot of the Detroit fans that came as far as the walk-ups. I think a lot of the Clevelanders had already gotten their tickets, like you said, in advance.
Yeah, I think you're right. That's the way that it tends to go, and they've got to be happy with how that turned out for them. I, on the other hand, picked the right day to go to the ballpark, which was Thursday, so we got to witness the Swisher walk-off slam, and that was really something to see. But the last time we got a W, but I did not make it to the park this past weekend, but I was able to see the better part of the games, and of course the Omar celebration. Took me back to one of my favorite trivia questions. Anytime anybody talks about Hall of Fame worthiness for Omar Vizquel, I remind them that there are 3 players in baseball history that have more than 10 Gold Gloves and more than 2,850 hits, and the other 2 guys are named Mays and Clemente, and Omar being the third one. So I always rest my case on that and just say, throw me any statistics you want, but exactly 3 guys have pulled that off, and of course 2 of them are already in.
It does amaze me how much, and it's because he was never flashy, and he played that long stretch here in Cleveland. It amazes me outside of Cleveland, the casual baseball fans, how much they don't really know the name Omar Vizquel. He's one that a lot of people will go, well, yeah, maybe he was, he's all right. He was good in Cleveland. In Cleveland, it's a foregone conclusion. When are they going to put him into Cooperstown? Has the clock started yet? But I find that funny, and I think it's because he was so under the radar for so long. Plus, he evolved as a player, kind of the way we talk about Michael Brantley sneaking up on people. Omar evolved as a hitter, where early on he was believed, the book on him was all glove. Part of it was, he even talked about it over the weekend, being transplanted in the middle of the year in Cleveland during that era. But, he crept up throughout his career, gradually got better offensively, even better defensively. So I think maybe that's part of the overlooking of Omar on more of a wide national perspective.
Yeah, that's true. A couple things. First of all, the detractors, the people who say he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame, are fond of saying, well, he was no Ozzie. He was a great defensive player, but he wasn't Ozzie Smith. Well, what? Ozzie Smith's the only shortstop that's allowed to be in the Hall of Fame because he was a great defensive shortstop? Only one shortstop allowed in or something? Barry Larkin got in. Here's the thing about Omar, too. Before he turned 40, in other words, he had a couple of years in the twilight of his career when he was out west, when his career batting average suffered a couple of points. But I believe, and I'm not looking at it now, but I believe his career batting average is about 273, 274. It was 275 before he turned 40, which essentially matches Cal Ripken's career batting average. I happen to think Cal Ripken is, slightly overrated as an overall ball player, worshipped, and maybe strictly for this. A lot of people will disagree, but the other thing about Omar, a light hitting shortstop with a 275 career batting average and almost 2,900 hits in his career. Got to be kidding me. It's just not a valid criticism of him to say that he was light hitting, had more doubles in his career than Mickey Mantle, for heaven's sake. I mean, you can pull out all kinds of obscure stats, but let's face it, he was certainly among the top 3 or 4 best defensive shortstops in the history of the game. I think there's room for him in Cooperstown.
No, I'm one. You'll never get an argument from me. I ride the train to get Omar into Cooperstown, and I love going back and forth with the stat because, like you said, when you look at the company that he's in and his total body of work, I mean, really, when you lay those stats on people, they go, wow, I did not even realize it. And then, it's really hard to argue in any way with his qualifications whatsoever. It's really
right.
hard.
And
he even mentioned,
they say, well, sure, he has 2,900 hits. He played for 20-some seasons. Well, is that a criticism, too, of Henry Aaron? Is that a criticism, too, of Pete Rose? I mean, do we fault people's numbers because they played for a long time? No, you don't see that happen to anybody else.
What you mentioned, did you hear that on the Fox broadcast? Did you hear they even and I can't think of which one it was. I didn't really care for the guys that they had calling the game, but the one guy was bringing up Omar being honored, and he talked about, well, when you play, that many years, you're going to have a lot of stats in certain categories. And he said it almost dismissively, like, well, you expect to, lead some categories when you play 27 years or whatever he said. But he said it really dismissively. It kind of like what you just said made me remember that. Well, you would think he should get that many hits in that long. But
right. It's like
that.
Criticizing Cal Ripken. Well, he never took a day off. He played every day. Geez, they never took him out of the lineup. Of course he piled up some stats.
For the last 5 years,
you'd never hear that
hurting
kind
the
of
team.
a criticism of somebody like Ripken, who was famous for playing every day, and obviously that's his claim to fame, is that he never took a day off.
Yeah, but you could even take that to the detriment that it began to hurt the team because you're forcing the streak instead of, what I mean, like, taking days off.
Absolutely, yeah, playing hurt. Maybe when you're in a slump, a normal player is going to take a day off, but not Cal, because he was great for PR for the team because of the streak, and the longer it went, the harder it was for a manager to even think about breaking the streak by sitting them down.
And Omar, I'll tell you what, he was funny too over the weekend. He said, I was probably a 240 hitter, but hitting in that lineup, I'm a 280, 285 hitter because that thing adds 40, 45 points to me right there. And he was right. He was able to just be dropped in there in that number 2 slot there in that lineup. Look at all the guys hitting around him. I mean, he was, people, just like we talk about now, people looking past Omar, they'd look past him in that lineup there, and he'd go, well, thank you very much, and he would rake him up.
Yeah, you're right, and he was not stuck in the number 2 hole because that was the only place to put him. He was stuck in the 2 hole because he was a great 2 hitter. Right. Great eye, ability to put the bat on the ball. He was a tremendous bunter. He was fast. He was smart. He could hit behind the runner. He was a versatile hitter. So, he was in the 2 hole for a reason, and he's responsible for a lot of those RBIs that the Tomies and Murrays and Ramirez and Bells and Baergas were able to bat in because he scored an awful lot of runs ahead of those guys.
Absolutely, and the love the crowd showed him, as we said, not only in the volume and the loudness, but the seats as well. The first regular season sellout in almost a year, and that doesn't happen a lot in Cleveland. Even some of the past Hall of Fame ceremonies haven't been guaranteed sellouts. So there was a lot of love there, and it was an emotional thing, but it was a well done ceremony, and just definitely one of those. I love those cool moments in the middle of all the madness that goes on from day to day, where you can take some time, especially there. And we joke about it all the time. And Omar said it when he was talking to the media about how much Cleveland loves the 90s. He goes, man, on my Twitter, nobody wants to talk to me about anything else except those teams in the 90s. And really, we joke about it, but man, to this day, just people live and die with those teams still 20 years later.
Yeah, no doubt, and because it's the oasis in the desert,
right?
And of Cleveland sports, I kind of refer to Ohio State Buckeyes sometimes as being the oasis in the desert of Cleveland sports, but really that's the exception, is those 90s Indians. The last time that there was a bona fide championship caliber team, even though they fell a little bit short in this town. So yeah, it's small wonder that is still remembered fondly, and Omar was one of many faces of that team, but he was I tell you, the thing that to me is remarkable about Omar is the smile on his face all the time. The guy was just upbeat. I loved playing it. you could tell just in the spring in his step and the smile on his face, and it sounds a little bit corny, but it's absolutely true that he loved the game. He played it like that, and it was infectious, and he was able to communicate that love of the game to the fan base, and that's why they returned that affection to him.
Absolutely. I do think, though, and I want to know who he lost a bet to on Saturday to wear that shirt out there, because I'm telling you, I saw somebody on my Twitter said he wore the puffy shirt.
To wear the puffy shirt on the
on
Today Show.
Yes. I think he lost a bet to somebody there or something, but setting the fashion trends, But no, seriously, it was cool. It was cool to see, and it was. I'll tell you, I thought for sure when they tied it in the ninth, I'm like, okay, well, they're going to win it the way that the 90s Indians did it. They're going to walk this thing off, maybe even in extra innings, because that's how it happens. But let's switch that. Let's look at the weekend. Let's actually go past Saturday. Let's look at Friday, too, because Kluber, who, even though he got the loss, he pitched well. He really is the lone consistency that you know what you can get with the Indians starting pitching here. As again, he gave up those 2 runs early in the game. He gave up the home run to Victor Martinez, but for the most part, Kluber is the one guy that really what you're going to get from time to time. And Indians, it was too little, too late there. And you look too. I'll tell you what, you look when you're down 2-0 and when you're not getting anything going, then you give up those 3 in the 8th. Some people look at that as garbage time scoring, but then look, when you're able to drop that bottom of the 8th like you did, and it turns around that had you not given up the couple of home runs. I know Axford came in and gave up the one to J.D. Martinez, but you look at that and you go, man, that's what cost you there. But too little, too late on Friday, kind of a portending to how the weekend was going to go there.
Yeah, no doubt. They ended up playing from behind really all weekend long, and the same thing really did happen to them on Saturday, where they fell behind early, started to get back into it, and then gave up some late runs that forced them to fall short. The starting pitching certainly has been shaky. I heard you talk a little bit about the David Price availability. I have no idea what Tampa Bay would be asking for from the Cleveland Indians for David Price, but you can bet it would start out with Francisco Lindor and a few other people, before you even get into the conversation. So, don't know how that's going to play out. I guess you've got to hope if you're the Indians that Josh Tomlin is going to get his act back together, and that McAllister comes back strong, and that you start getting some consistency out of these guys. But this weekend is certainly one of those stretches where you really have to give some serious thought and seriously question whether this team really does have what it takes to contend and to make it through the long season, especially when we've seen what most of us thought to be one of the stronger points of the team, a decent starting rotation, really start to show a little bit of wear and tear and a little bit rough around the edges there the last several times through the rotation, and not getting the consistency you need out of Masterson and even Kluber following up his great May with a less than it'd be hard to equal his May with his June, but you have to expect a little fall off there. But it's just been a little bit disappointing in what we've been able to get out of the starting pitching.
Well, I mean, you look, too, at the run support. He's got Kluber, is who I'm talking about. He's got nothing, even though, you look and you go, oh, man, he's dropped off. He's held pretty strong from where he's at. Here's something interesting as we talk about Price and maybe trades and different things. This is an odd stat, but even with getting swept over the weekend, if you go back to May 1st, the Indians have the 5th best record in Major League Baseball, and in that period, they're only 4 games over 500, which screams to me that for the last 7, nearly 8 weeks, all of baseball is playing 500 or worse. So everybody in baseball is kind of keeping each other in this thing right now. But isn't that crazy to think about it? Since May 1st, even after this sweep, I mean, to have the 5th best record, but yet you're only 4 games. They were 26-22 since May 1st.
That is pretty remarkable, and you and I have been commenting all season so far, even right out of the gate in April, how bunched up everybody was, and how the parity and the balance all throughout Major League Baseball, with a couple of exceptions in a couple divisions, where Oakland and San Francisco, for example, are kind of running away. The balance and the bunching of the rest of the teams in all the divisions has been really something we haven't seen that much in recent years, unless my memory is failing me. It just seems like there's much more balance, much more parity, and that stat you just quoted is great evidence of it, that a record of 4 games over 500 is better than 25 other teams. That's really quite remarkable.
And that, and then again, it's just speaking of, like I said at the beginning of the show, as much as, we swept the Tigers earlier, and as much as that does not say that you're that much better than the Tigers, this is the opposite side of that as well. And I just think it shows the competitiveness that we keep talking about in the division. You're going to continue to see this here, but some people are pointing back to me because it's similar. You look back to that 4th of July, the last time the Indians sold out a non-opening day game last year and getting swept by the Tigers, and you see how everybody thought that was the end of the world, and then the Indians were just toast, and no fans would ever come back out again because of the same stuff we're talking about. Big crowd, and you laid an egg, and to me, you laid more of an egg in that series than what you're looking at here, because realistically, I mean, the Indians, and I know you can't say would have and could have, but I mean, they realistically could have taken either of the first 2 games of the series, and even yesterday, you look at the stupid errors, and that's the only word that I can use that cost you these games. I mean, that's how you end up with that 7-run inning like that turns a competitive game into what that turned into, But same thing with Saturday. They had every chance to win that game earlier in the game, too. You missed out on opportunities, and then, I saw some people faulting them in extra innings for pitching to Cabrera, and I'm like, okay, really? You can't fault them for any direction they go there, do you? Here's your options. You can walk Miguel Cabrera and walk Victor Martinez to get to J.D. Martinez, who's killing everybody too, or you can pitch to any of the other guys there. I mean, what is a good choice there? I mean, maybe you walk Miguel Cabrera to get to Victor Martinez, but I need to remind you, and I don't think anybody needs to remind the Indians, that all time, 125 or more at-bats, Miguel Cabrera, nobody has more RBIs against the Indians, and he is 3rd of opponents in home runs against the Indians all time. So Miguel Cabrera is the Indians' killer anyway, but Victor Martinez is not too far behind him. So how do you really fault the Indians for how they handled that there in extra innings? I mean, what are you going to do?
That's right. You don't fault them. I can't believe that any serious person was suggesting that second-guessing the pitching to Miguel Cabrera when the next batter on deck is Victor Martinez, who, by the way, if you're quoting some numbers I saw over the weekend, 4th all-time of all players in the major leagues with more than 150 at-bats against the Cleveland Indians. Victor Martinez hitting 370. There's only 3 players in baseball with more than 150 at-bats against the Indians who have a higher batting average against them.
There you go.
And he had killed them the entire weekend. Homers on Friday, homers again the next day. He's chewed him up all season in the 8 games we played against him. I got to believe he's batting 400 and less. I don't know what. I think we've handled Miguel Cabrera better than we've handled Victor Martinez this year. So the idea that you shouldn't have pitched to Miggy, you should have walked him and pitched to Victor, that seems crazy to me. I think that's people that are looking, grasping for anything to criticize Francona about there. That just makes no sense at all.
No, but I mean, really, and again, my Twitter timeline was full of it, and even looking through, I could go now and look at some of the Facebook comments here on the Sports Fix fan page after the game, and it's a lot of the what, and you know what? It amazes me that some of them go after Terry Francona, and they'll use something like that. See, this is why there's manager issues. Why would you pit? And I'm like, come on. Now I could see sometimes I'm not forgiving Terry Francona, like, from everything that you could criticize him for. But I'm just saying that's not one to me, because where are you going to go? I mean, There's only so many bases to put people on, and it just seems like not only that, but that strategy hasn't exactly worked against the Tigers because of that. And that's what I say, not to compliment Detroit too much here, but looking at that lineup, it's amazing that pitchers have to get through that. Like, that's why you cannot screw around against the bottom 4 or 5 guys in that lineup, because once you get through there, you get right back up. And it's like murderer's row. Here you go. You look at Ian Kinsler like a break sometimes. You're like, wait a minute, who's next? That's crazy, because that top half of that lineup is just a nightmare for pitchers to try to get through.
Yeah, I think the people that are talking about manager issues, I've got 2 words for those people: Eric Wedge. Okay, I just can't believe that people are talking about looking at this team and trying to figure out what the issues are, and what they come up with is that the manager is one of them. I just can't believe people are that dumb, that they don't remember the thick-head managers that we've had in the past few years before Francona arrived. So. Just, like I said, even maniaca would be 2 words to answer the critics that think we have manager issues.
Last I checked, Terry Francona did not commit 3 errors yesterday. He did not. I could be wrong about that, but last I checked, that was not the way the game went. And
yes, it was not manager. No, I understand that.
And I get that he does. Yeah, look, you can always second guess somebody in hindsight, but that one just got me, because that one, I'm telling you, and I know how you say, well, your Twitter is yours and mine is mine, and that's fine. But I think I've got a pretty, well-rounded one. I've got a lot of level-headed people in there, but I must follow all of the goofballs in Cleveland sports Twitter, because it was full of it. I was sitting here getting mad looking at Saturday night after the game, just going through it, all these people flaming the Indians, and I'm like, this is ridiculous here, man. So whatever. What can you do about it? That's the beauty of it. You can go whatever you want with it, man. But that's a crazy way to look at things for me. And so
sure, and look at defense first, and unfortunately, that's one thing that Francona has no control over, and other than the mindset of his players, and I don't know all what you can do with a grown man in terms of affecting their focus and concentration from the manager's chair. But it is the one thing that is a glass half empty kind of a thing, because you and I've talked many times about how it's nothing that the manager can fix, and it's nothing that you're really going to improve over the course of a season, dramatically. You are what you are in terms of the defensive, strength or weakness, and this infield-wise, at least, this is not a good defensive team, and that's going to be the case for 162 games, and it's one of the things that really gives me pause about, believing that they have what it takes to still be in it at the end.
I still think that some of it it's concentration, though. Maybe not all. You are right. For the most part, you are who you are. But we've seen these stretches, especially recently during the good play, where they've made more of a focused effort on defense, and they've gone a week straight with clean baseball. When you can do that, that tells me that you can do it on a consistent basis, and then you slip back into those bad habits, and we saw some of that. Even if it's as simple as the transfer of the ball when you're making the switch over, throwing it back to first, So but at the end of the day, guys, for everybody that's sitting here today tripping, the Indians and the Tigers, the team that won 17 out of 21, however many they won, was it 17-4 that what was the
they played 19. It was 4-15 we were against them last year. Right now we're 4-4.
Right, 4-4 this season.
So we're and I can't see us losing 11 in a row. Although the streak at the end of last year was toward the end of the season when we really fell apart against them. And I believe that of the 11 remaining games, that I think 8 of them are going to be in Detroit and 3 in Cleveland. I'm not sure about that, but it seems like we've had already more than our share of Detroit and Cleveland. I know the one rainout was up there.
7 and
so
5.
I believe that it's 7 or 8 games in Detroit and the other 3 or 4 in Cleveland, if I'm not mistaken, as we finish out the 19 games with them. But 4-4 right now, you got to like where you sit against Detroit, and you're going to pick up a couple of wins at least down the stretch, and hopefully you can break even with them.
Yeah, the home-away split is 7-5 for the remaining games with the Indians because you've got that makeup game. And actually, if you look at this, you've got just about a month from now, you've got the next setup between these two teams. You've got a 4-game tilt in Detroit right there in the heart of July. And then the final 2 series, a 4-gamer in Cleveland and a 3-gamer in Detroit, all in the month of September, the first weekend and the middle weekend of September, which, in my opinion, unless things don't go, if things go off the tracks, I expect that to be where everything comes down to, whether you're talking Detroit, Kansas City, Cleveland, whatever, those are going to be big. And so that's good to have 7 of them on tap in the home stretch against Detroit there for the Indians.
Yeah, that's true. In fact, last year, they finished up a little bit earlier than that, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. And coming down the stretch, there were no head-to-heads because we had finished up early in the month of September, I believe. And those last few weeks, we had no head-to-head against the Tigers. But, certainly those games are going to be meaningful, almost regardless of what happens. Those games are going to be meaningful for one or the other or both of these teams as you go down the stretch, and that's the way you want it.
You think you had an atmosphere this weekend? Wait until you get to that first weekend of September. If these teams are within striking distance of each other there, I think it'll be a hell of a baseball atmosphere. You've got to get to there. And one of the things that I just brought up earlier, I'll come back to, is the trade market. Because I do believe, even if your guys get more consistent, the Indians have to acquire a starting pitcher here to go down the stretch run. I think that's clear as day. My question is not so much what do the Indians do, when do you think the trade market opens up? Who do you think, when does that first real move happen? Because with everybody playing so bunched up right now, nobody wants to cash it in yet. Nobody wants to give up just yet. Nobody wants to start making those trades. Somebody's going to pop that cork and make that first one. So we see one of these contenders make the first relatively decent-sized trade.
Yeah, well, I obviously crystal ball's a little cloudy on that, but you're right that the bunching of the teams throughout baseball will function to push that date back, to make it come later and until teams finally, get realistic or hit a cold streak and realize that they're not going to fight their way back into it. The tight bunching of the teams and the relative parity we see will certainly work to make that date come later than it otherwise might. I mean, that's probably the only thing you can really say for sure, is that it'll be later than normal because there's so many teams, and throw in the additional wild card over the last couple of years, and that also is going to work to make that date come later for a lot of teams before they cash it in.
Not only that, but I think it's gonna add a premium as well to what price these teams have to pay, because there's gonna be more people kind of in that whole, hey, maybe we pick up a pitcher, maybe we pick up one more guy. So I think the price, which is already inflated artificially at the trade deadline, you always have to overpay for the most part at the trade deadline. I think that's going to be even worse when you look at more teams that are considering making a trade or picking up a move or whatever. So, and that's the thing that worries me, is as much as I'd like to see the Indians make a move, I hear, even when you're looking at price, and I get it, pitching has a premium to it, but you start to hear, oh, well, if you don't want to go Lindor, then you may have to attach, a Clint Frazier or one of these other guys. And I look at some of these names down on the system, and I'm like, man, I don't know that I get it. You may have to, a Dorsis Paulino or somebody. I get you may have to go with one of your upper prospects, but I would be very hard-pressed to separate from many of them because they've done a good job of drafting, and I do have a feeling that most of these guys will pan out over the next few years. Most of them, obviously not all of them.
Yeah, you never know. And I guess on the flip side of that, Jerry, is if you look back at the last time the Tribe made a bold move like that, it was when they traded 2 number ones, their number one starting pitcher prospects in 2 successive years, Pomerantz and White, made that trade for Ubaldo Jimenez. And yeah, we had 2 years out of Ubaldo, including 1 good year, and he's credited with being a key to getting us into the playoffs. So I guess you'd have to say that's a success. I gritted my teeth at the time. I was down on the trade because I don't think you trade 2 number ones, certainly not 2 back-to-back number ones, especially starting pitchers. Both had some promise. But you look at those two guys right now, and Pomerantz has had a good year for Oakland this year, but he's on the DL right now. Alex White is nowhere to be found. You know, that they were both traded to the Rockies. White has been up and down. He's been inconsistent. I don't know if he's hurt. I know he's not pitching for him right now, as far as I know. And Pomerantz ended up in Oakland, where he's gone from the bullpen to the rotation and back to the bullpen, and he's had some good, solid starts this year, but he's not a front of the rotation starter by any means right now. And so you kind of have to look back and say, you know, okay, so maybe Shapiro and his boys knew what they were doing when they traded those two guys for Ubaldo Jimenez.
I'll tell you what.
It works both ways.
With White, I truly believe, I said this on the air years ago when they made that trade. I was on the air the night they made that trade, and I said I think that they had the internal, you know, we had talked about some alcohol issues and some different things off the field. I think they knew what they were doing when they made that one. I think the risk to them was Pomerantz. I think they were worried that he may, you know, turn out to be a Steven Strasburg. Just as he got himself started, you to bring this up, he pulled a Hagedorn. He took himself out. He punched he punched a chair in the locker room the other day, and that's why he broke his hand and ended up on the disabled list. He actually punched with the right hand. He punched a wooden chair and broke his hand on the chair. So he had just come off the worst start of his career, actually. He gave up 8 runs the other day and was pretty frustrated. But that was just after he seemed like maybe he was getting himself straightened out, you know. So I don't know. I think they were doing with White, you know. And so now you wonder, you know, what risk, you know, obviously I think they know how to evaluate their farm system, but, you know, you got some major league too. I mean, Masterson, that's as much as you go, well, do you trade pitching for other pitching? And I think that's why he doesn't get involved there, but he is somebody with the contract year coming up, and that may be in there. I think Asdrubal Cabrera is going to be a key piece of bringing you back a pitcher. I just believe that he's somebody that, especially he's been hitting. He as long as he continues to warm himself up, I think that he's going to be a key piece of a package. Him and a prospect, perhaps, and then, you know, I mean, I don't know. What do you think there?
Well, I think definitely that he's the guy who is almost certainly going to be moved if they make a move. He's certainly the logical guy. I do recall approximately a year ago, you know, a lot of people were having the same conversation about Asdrubal, and I remember at the time the Cardinals were looking for a shortstop, and we started hearing names thrown around like Shelby Miller and Trevor Rosenthal and Waka and people like that, and, you know, you could hear the laughter all the way from St. Louis. So it just clearly he wasn't worth any of those 3 guys, and you were never going to pry any of those 3 guys away from them. But at least we know there were conversations going on with the Cardinals at the time, and I'm sure those same conversations are going on now regarding some starters and Asdrubal, and you know, if I were a betting man, I wouldn't bet the house, but you know, some furniture that Asdrubal will be gone by the trade deadline, just because it makes too much sense not to move him.
I'll tell you what, and outside talking trade deadline as we wrap this up, I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it wouldn't. I know they'll at least take a few phone calls. Wouldn't surprise me if around trade deadline time we start hearing the Ubaldo Jimenez name start popping out there, because he's under contract for a couple of seasons, and it hasn't exactly started the best way there in Baltimore. And I'm just saying that, you know, he's one of those names that I can see being out there as a team being interested in acquiring, even though he just signed there, you know, because that's a couple of years of team control. You know, I'm just saying. I was telling somebody over the weekend, I said, you watch. I'm not saying they're going to trade him, but how much you want to bet Ubaldo's name gets hot around the trade deadline?
Yeah, that wouldn't be a bit surprising based on the kind of start he's had and the kind of dollars that they have committed to him. It would be certainly bizarre to have the Indians involved in that discussion.
No.
To take on a contract. But you're right. I mean, he's the kind of guy that's going to get dangled because of all the money, and because the Orioles see. Was it a 3-year deal with them or 4, Jerry?
I believe it was
recall.
4. So I think it was 4 years, $50 million or something like that. It's a lot.
Yeah, I think that's right. And the Orioles got to have visions of $37 million flying out the window over the next 3 years, and they might be having some second thoughts about that signing. But I think it certainly makes sense that he's going to be a guy that gets talked about.
Oh, for sure. I got a kick out of that. I said all of the Ubaldo talk in spring and everything, and he'll be right back in it a few months later, because I'm telling you, I'm not saying he's a bust in Baltimore, but I know if I'm in Baltimore and I'm going, man, just check around and see if there's any way we maybe get out from underneath this thing. Just make some phone calls, and then all of a sudden you got something to think about, because and I'll tell you what, Vashon with a good point there. He hasn't gotten the most run support there either, but there is a bit of a difference too. I had even heard, I don't know if it's still going on, but I had even heard some whispers coming from Baltimore that there was discussions about switching him out of the rotation and perhaps moving him to the bullpen at one point, which I'm not saying that's happening, but I mean, he was definitely struggling. Then it seemed like there was a period where he started to get himself together, but it looks like he's struggling a little bit again.
Yeah, I think the ERA is over 5, at least it was last time I looked, and that's not a problem with run support. That's a problem with not being able to get guys out.
Absolutely.
So,
yeah.
I'm not sure where that ERA sits right now, but it's a good indicator of what he's doing.
You're listening to the Sports Fix. My man Dan Wismar, always a great conversation here, and thanks again, Dan. Wednesday, we'll be back at it. I know at some point here we will have some Buckeyes to talk about. I know I've seen a lot of talk, a lot of people. We're hitting the season here over the next few weeks where a lot of these guys are going to make their decisions, these guys that have narrowed their list down to the top 5, the top 3. So I expect a lot of guys to start committing here to schools over the next month, right?
Certainly, yeah. And Urban Meyer's got the momentum going right now. He's really, what he's done, Jerry, and just to take a minute about it, he's really loaded up the last week or so on some key Ohio kids, and a couple of them were surprises. Denzel Ward, the kid out of Nordonia, a little bit undersized, a corner, but he's super fast. About 5'11", 170 or so, a little bit smallish based on the corners they've elected to go with lately. But they love him as an athlete, and he's a 17-year-old, and so 5'11", 170 isn't going to be what he plays at when he gets into the lineup. Mon June, another kid out of Ignatius, a big defensive end that they got a commitment from the other day. What you're about to see with the Buckeyes, he's loaded up now on several Ohio kids. Now there's a group of about 4 or 5 really blue chip kids. A couple of them are 5 stars, the rest are 4 stars. 2 of them are from Ohio. A couple of linebackers that are really key to this recruiting class. One is Justin Hilliard from St. Xavier down in Cincy. The other is Jerome Baker from Benedictine. Yeah. Both are just real blue chippers that could go anywhere they wanted to, from Alabama to Notre Dame to anywhere. Those 2 guys look like they're very likely to become Buckeyes. There's a defensive end from Minneapolis named Ja'Shawn Cornell, a running back from Kentucky named Damian Harris. There's this group of about 4 or 5, a couple wide receivers, Van Jefferson, Christian Kirk are the names. Those 5 to 6 kids are super key to what Meyer's doing. I think at least 5 of those 6 are going to be in this class. The big key is Justin Hilliard, who's going to decide here in a few days between Notre Dame and Ohio State. The Buckeyes think they've got him. All the talk seems to be leaning that way, and Meyer's about to make a very, very big push with about 5 or 6 kids that are going to vault this class from where it's rated right now, around in the high teens to 20, up to the top 5. You're going to see that happen probably before the middle of July. Buckeyes are poised to make a very big move in recruiting in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, I see that. Hilliard set his announcement date July 2nd, and I saw another Darius Fullwood this weekend. He's going to make his announcement. Some of the other guys you talked about there, I wanted to ask you about that. Maybe Wednesday we could go a little bit more into that, but definitely a time where that heats up as well, too,
Right. Yeah, it's going to be fun over the next few days. I like some of the commitments. They signed a couple of 2016 kids as well, including an offensive lineman from Portsmouth. But the focus over the next 2 to 3 weeks is going to be big. That coincides with some camps at Ohio State. Friday Night Lights is coming up on the 25th of July. The opening out in Oregon is coming up soon. A lot of these kids are going to make their decisions, at least the ones that are going to want to get it out of the way before their senior years start. And a lot of activity going to be happening over the next few weeks. So we will get into that a little bit more on Wednesday.
All right, my man, Dan Wismar, always with us, not only during the Buckeyes season, talking Buckeyes, but Indians, Browns, you name it. I love it. Mondays and Wednesdays, great times with Dan Wismar from the Cleveland Fan. Dan, you enjoy the next couple of days. No Indians tonight. They'll get back at it tomorrow. You and I will get back at it on Wednesday.
Sounds good, Jerry. Look forward to it.
All right. Good luck with your electricity issues, too. Hopefully, when you turn everything back on, it's all running copacetic-like. We'll be right back. Hopefully, we're running copacetic as well. When we come back, we will finish things up. Their Gladiators win. They clinch a playoff spot. Some local guys in the news I want to mention, and Tribe off tonight. We're going to wrap things up. Coming up next, hey, last chance. I'll open up the phone lines for the next few minutes. If anybody wants to get in, cool. If not, we'll call it a day. 216-539-7535 is the number to call. Don't go anywhere. Wrapping things up next here on the Sports Fix.
To the Sports Fix if you want to be my lover.
Hey guys, before we go to the break, I want to talk to you a little bit again about our good friends at Harry Buffalo North Olmsted. Of course, you know during Brown season, we're there each and every week. What a fun time it was last year. But not just that, so many more reasons for you to check out the Harry Buffalo today. The UFC, the Ultimate Fighting Championships, some of the hottest fights in the world today. Each and every one of their huge events. Harry Buffalo is one of the few places in Northeast Ohio you can go there and watch each and every UFC fight at the Harry Buffalo. And let me tell you, I've been there. The people are out the door. They are to the rafters. It is one of the craziest environments for some UFC fights. Wing Mondays, they've got great deals on wings and drinks. And every day of the week, there's a different special, a different deal. And don't forget the Bison Burger, the unbelievable. It is the combination of a fantastic burger and eating healthy combined into one unbelievable sandwich. You have got to get a Bison Burger while you're there. So whatever you're looking for, whatever day of the week, Monday through Friday, Saturday, Sundays, there's something for you at the Harry Buffalo North Olmsted, just outside Great Northern Mall. Check them out today. Harry Buffalo, join the herd.
It's an addiction. The Sports Fix. We'll be right back.
Indians fans, GV Art and Design has unleashed their new baseball collection. This summer, you've got to have one of the hottest baseball shirts available. Indians themes, GV Art has them covered from top to bottom. Chief Wahoo, keep the Chief, one of the hottest sellers going today. GV Artwork, knocking it out of the park, teaming up with Michael Brantley to create a custom Dr. Smooth t-shirt. Bringing back an old classic, GV Artwork, bringing out the wild thing. Give them the heater design. The Cleveland That I Glove collection continues to grow. New designs for women and so much more. GVArtwork.com, bringing it full force to the plate for baseball season this year. Whether you check them out online, GVArtwork.com, use the sales code FIX10, FIX10 to save 10% on your total purchase. Whether you go to their store in Lakewood, check them out at the Cleveland Indians team shops around Progressive Field and so much more. GV Art and Design. It's not just a shirt, it's a statement.
Whether it's an oil change or a new set of tires, Quick Lane at Valley Ford Truck has you covered for your car care needs. They're your neighborhood quick service experts. They also offer a low price tire guarantee. Choose from 13 brands, and if you find the same tires at a lower price within 30 days, Quick Lane at Valley Ford will refund the difference. 5715 Canal Road, right under the 480 bridge in Valley View. Come see why life is better in the Quick Lane. QuickLane.com/Valley Ford Truck.
This is the Sports Fix. What is your name?
I'm the dude. So that's what you call me, you know? That or his dudeness or duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
Dude. What do you want?
Well, it's this rug I have. It really tied the room together.
We are not a show to be swept under the rug. We are a show to be heard.
It's the Sports Fix.
Welcome back to the Sports Fix. I know that's the way you like it. Otherwise, you wouldn't still be here listening. J-Rocc back with you as we're heading into the home stretch here, wrapping things up. Thank you guys so much, by the way, for being with us. As always, I like to say that at the beginning of the segment because then things get all busy and hairy at the end, and then sometimes I forget, and that really is most important because I mean it. I love getting to do this and every day being here with you guys, and it's a two-way street. I've got to show up, and so do you. If one of us isn't here, the other one is left unfulfilled, obviously. Both ways that goes. So thank you guys for being with us. Thanks to Dan Wismar and John McMullen as well for being with us today. A fun show. Some good conversations, too. You know, sometimes I dig the slower news days, you know, and we're going to hit that period here now where there's less things to talk about, so you can kind of stretch out what you talk about and get a little more deeper into the conversation. I kind of like that, you know, and so today was an example of that. So thanks to those guys for being with us. Thanks to you guys as we get back into it too. Indians off tonight here before they get back into action tomorrow. Head out on the road, and we'll be talking about that tomorrow. Actually, Jeff Gorman, usually with us on Tuesdays, he's off for the next just about 3 weeks or so. He'll be off the show, so I'm hopeful to have Mike Brandenberry from DidTheTribeWinLastNight.com with us. Of course, we're always going to have Dr. Football will be with us here tomorrow as well. Doug Plagans from the Monsters and the Gladiators, those Gladiators who just qualified for the playoffs in the AFL. They are not only are they rocking and rolling, heading into the home game beach party this Friday. Doug's going to be with us here this week, of course. As always, I just talked to him. He's actually at the AHL League meetings right now, so he's going to coordinate a time during the next few days where we can get together and do the thing. So looking forward to having Doug on with us later on in the week. So tomorrow, a lot on tap, and we'll get things set for the Indians road trip and all of that. A couple of things that I wanted to talk. You know, first off, I just noticed this, and you know, looking at, for a lot of people who have hit me up, when obviously we talked about it at the beginning of the show, the whole thing with the NBA and the free agency, and one of those, I'm not even talking about you know who, but the one story that broke, I told you guys, is some of these things, there's smoke to them, but some of them are just as ridiculous as can be. You know, the Carmelo Anthony thing that came out about him coming to Cleveland. I listened to some things that he said over the weekend, and not besides the fact that I think it's funny too. He talks like he's in the LeBron type situation. As far, he actually literally talk about wanting to be involved in player personnel and helping pick the team and helping fit the team. And I'm like, man, really? This is what sports has come to, man. Like, hey, come help me pick the team. Not I do my job and you do yours. But I don't even care about that part of it. Looking at reasons why you guys are nuts. Sometimes there's more. It has nothing to do with just money and basketball and stuff, and to hear him talk about where he's gonna go live, I mean, I'm listening to these quotes and I'm going, dude, where do you guys think anywhere in here that he's going to a smaller market city, which is the way Carmelo Anthony would view Cleveland regardless of the on the court thing? I mean, I'm looking at some of these quotes here. You know, he says the average person looks at it like, hey, next year you go here, you win a championship, or you could win there. He goes, you got to realize that this next contract is going to be the next 6 to 8 years of my career. I've got family. My son loves going to school in New York. I remember what it was like to move all over the place and as a young child, and how hard it is to start over again. And I'll tell you what, for those of you that have kids, you realize that really is a part of the decision that I think a lot of people leave out. That's because, and they leave it out because a lot of guys don't care. They just go do what they got to do and drag everybody along with them. But here's the quote that got me, and I think applies directly to Cleveland. I came from a smaller market in Denver, not so much scrutiny. Playing in a smaller market, you can only go so high as an individual player. You can only do so much, and then you've got to look for a bigger stage, a bigger market, a bigger stand. And then you hear him talk about player personnel. And I had, let's see, before I read this article, I had zero interest in Carmelo Anthony. Now I have negative interest in Carmelo Anthony being a member of the Cavaliers. I'll tell you what, just looking at that, there's a reason that he has not had the off the regular season playoff type success that he's had. I get it that some people think he's a great player. I am not one of those people. I just think everybody else is I don't know, whatever. I have a different way of looking at him and his skill set and what he brings to the table. Definitely not interested in a guy like that. And I don't just mean Cleveland. I mean, if I was in any team, anywhere, I mean, look at when you hear him talk about wanting to be able to pick the players and pick the team, and I'm like, see, this is an absolutely no-win situation there. And good luck to whatever team brings that into the equation there, because there's no, to me, that's not in any way a recipe for success. But regardless, looking at that, I laugh at it to people. They go, oh, well, I saw so-and-so and this said that on Twitter. But listen, man, one city that he's not considering, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the city. It's written right there in the word. Maybe your boy's coming back. I'm not going to talk about that. But if he is, he's not bringing Melo with him. So let's just be real about that part of it. But you can check that out. I think I saw some of the quotes out there on NBC Sports or whatever. But Gladiators, talking about Doug Plakins joining us. Gladiators coming back to town this weekend after heading out on the road. June 27th, this Friday, they've got the beach party, and I'll tell you what, they've got something to celebrate, if you're a Gladiators fan anyway, as they clinched a playoff berth. Shane Austin tossed a team record 11 touchdowns. I mean, just you look at the score here, just an amazing performance all season long, not just a single game performance, all season long from the Gladiators. And on the final play of the game, Gladiators take care of business, 69-68, beating the Philadelphia Soul to move themselves to 12-1 on the season. They're qualified for the AFL playoffs. 5 games left to go in the regular season. Shane Austin with a ridiculous video game-like 409 passing yards and 11 touchdowns, and that's the one place where I with the Arena League, the stats get so big that sometimes you just have to chuckle at a stat line that says 26 of 40, 409 yards, and 11 touchdowns. But I'll tell you what, either way, good performance. Tyron Lewis with 172 yards and 4 touchdown receptions. Dominic Goodman 168 of his own and 3 more touchdowns there. Colin Taylor with a couple as well for the Glads. Friday, they're at home. We'll have Doug Plakins on later this week to talk about it. And I'll tell you what, hey, for those of you guys, as I get ready to wrap things up for the day, I know you guys know, obviously, my history. I've been a pro wrestler my whole life. Well, I'll tell you a couple of my friends that, not just my friends, a couple of guys that I've ran the roads with the last few weeks, really representing Cleveland nationally. My buddy M-Dog, Matt Cross, he has traveled the world as a wrestler. Him and I have, man, we've known each other for 15 years. But anyways, he represented Cleveland. For those of you that might have seen it on the news, he was on the American Ninja Warrior on NBC a couple of weeks ago. And the top 30 out of the however many thousand or however many, let me tell you, you watch that thing right there. It takes a man beast of some. And Matt is a gymnast, like an Olympic level gymnast. I'm telling you, the things that he can do are disgusting. And he ended up finishing 32nd. The top 30 made it down the stretch, so he is the second alternate for the finals that are coming out of, I think, St. Louis. But all the local news did a big thing on him. Really represented Cleveland and really showed some respect for the athleticism that goes into what he did. But he, representing baby Cleveland on NBC nationally a couple weeks ago. Last weekend, my guy, I trained him. He's one of the top stars for NWA TNA, Impact Wrestling that's on Spike TV. EC3, Ethan Carter, he main evented a pay-per-view last weekend. And then last night, my boy, my longtime partner, a guy that I think I've helped him and he's helped me for a lot of years get to where we're at, Ray Rowe. He represented Cleveland last night on another wrestling national pay-per-view, Worldwide Ring of Honor. So, 3 weeks in a row, man, 3 of my boys and 2 of my really, really close guys out there representing Cleveland nationally, man, putting it down, and I love it. And I just wanted to spend a minute and say, hey, if that's your thing, then make sure you're not missing out on the local guys making you look good across the world, baby. All right. We're going to call it a day, guys. Be back here tomorrow. As I said, Mike B will be here. Dr. Football in the house. All of that. We're setting your stage for the Indians and so much more. Same bad time, same bad channel live right here at noon tomorrow on thesportsfix.net. So until then, enjoy a relaxing night. Not a whole lot going on in the sports world. World Cup action going on. And hey, Wimbledon just started. If that's your thing, get into it. If not, relax, lay low. Come back tomorrow, and we'll see you live, noon, right here on the Sports Fix. We love you, Cleveland. We'll see you tomorrow.
Streets we hustle.